We're live. You are live, it says.
What's up? Welcome back. Tuesday.
Tuesday, doing it. You got people in the garage going ham. I don't know if you can hear them in the background, but they are squatting outside. The baby is outside.
Trying to get her gains through osmosis.
She's also squatting. She is. All right, Coach's Corner today. Semifinals programming and specialty classes. That's what we're going to go over. Now, we hope to see if anybody else is going to hop in here. We can bring Tristan in and then kick him out when we're done, if we're done with it. We don't need a new book for specialty classes if we don't want to. Anyone want to vote on that one?
We'll see. You might have something good to add. We'll see. We'll see.
I'll send him the link. Anybody watching? We got one watcher. You want to comment? Let us know who you are. I almost removed Tyler for a second because of the thing on there. I almost clicked it because I wanted him because I wasn't looking up at the. No, I almost removed him. Who's our? Oh, we got two watchers. Comment in the chat. Welcome to our show today. As always, I'm Todd Wise. This is Heather Chapa and Tyler.
There we go. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
What were you doing?
He was saying that we were echoing.
Oh, okay.
I forgot.
What's up, Charlie? He's in Indiana right now. Missed a good class today, my man. You know, them weighted ring dips and tripods. It was great.
He was still doing his cleans yesterday, though. I saw that on Instagram.
Oh, good. Getting after it. Never missing a beat. Oh, we got Sienna, also known as CJ. It me. I like that. You guys are echoing. Thanks, Tyler. I didn't look at the private chat. That's why I didn't see it. Well, man. First, we said we're gonna set a clock because I don't really want to talk about this all too much. Kind of over it now. For those of you guys who watch this later, the drama in the CrossFit space, the penalties. There's been a lot. You know, last week we talked about it a little bit as far as Heather set the clock. As far as the scores not going in for the clean and jerks correctly for some people, and then Tristan's here now. Hello, Tristan. We set a clock for 10 minutes to talk about the penalties and then move on because we're not going to dwell on this very much.
I like that.
Yeah, so then the scores come out, the video review happens. I think, and like everybody's, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, we don't necessarily, from what I've seen from videos on Instagram, and I would like to see more videos of these athletes and everything else, I don't necessarily agree with the penalties and the percentage of the penalties and how they're coming up with the some people are getting 10%, some people are getting 20% penalty, all that stuff as far as like a major penalty. I know it's in the rule book and they're allowed to do that. So like, that's why they're giving them out, and the percentages are variable, says it in the rule book. But I watched some people and I don't agree with some of the step up things. I mean, I wish part of me goes back to old school CrossFit where like, if you ever remember when you did Filthy 50 or Fight Gone Bad, like you didn't have to stand all the way up on the box. You just bounce off the box and get a ton of reps, which made my Fight Gone Bad and Filthy 50 score go way down, like when they brought in the stand up all the way. And I think some of the things, because how are they going to judge? They're not going to hate on the snatch or the row. It's pretty straightforward. So it was the box step up that they're scrutinizing. And, part of me, old school style, is like it's functional fitness. If you go, okay, functionality wise, go from the standing position on the floor with both dumbbells in your hands to a standing position on top of the box. If that means you're rounded back like you're Mr. Smithers, then fine. That's fine with me as long as your knees get extended and you're standing on the box. Because I would challenge anybody who has a problem with me saying that about the standards. Go ahead and get 240 reps. You stand on that box however you want. I'll give you half reps on snatches. You get it up barely above your forehead, I'll give you the rep. Like, you're not going to be able to get that score. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't like that. If you guys can agree or disagree, whatever you want. I just think it was too scrutinous on the movement, and let the people play, let them play the game. But there's a lot of other things too that I don't like. That got a lot of time, so 10 minutes and go. It's good. I think people's understanding of how the video review process works. So I know 3 people myself. Harley knows somebody who is on the video review team. Any one of us could eventually get on the video review team if we wanted. They're not all of them. Some of them are employed by CrossFit, but a good majority of them are not employed by CrossFit. They're volunteers. Typically they got their level 1, level 2. They've been judges at these events in the past. And then they say, here's the videos, you're going to review them. And then they review them. And then they go off to CrossFit if you give them a penalty. And then CrossFit, Adrian Bosman and the team or whatever, review that penalty that you give them. Based on the rules, you could have gave them a penalty for anything, and CrossFit is going to have to say, yeah, that's a good penalty, because the rules on the PDF are pretty straightforward and strict. So I could have been like, yeah, that person's head was down. I don't like them very much, if there's a bias there. Or I've been listening to Andrew Hiller all year, and now my bias is be strict, crush these people, get them out of there. They're cheating. Like, you've been now incepted because you've listened to the media all year, and you're a video reviewer because you're a human being and you're just super ultra strict on them. And then it goes to CrossFit, and CrossFit goes, yep, the knee was soft. They're correct. That's a major penalty. We'll get them out of there. So I don't like that aspect. And people, I don't think, understand that it's not like CrossFit themselves entirely. It's these volunteers watching these videos who then report to CrossFit. So there's a lot of human error there that happens as well with some of this stuff. And I only say that because I know people who are on the video review team. Marissa has our client who was on the video review team last year in Europe. And it's just really eye-opening what they're doing. And I'm glad they're having people volunteer for this and work for that. But I just think the human aspect of like the small community of CrossFit, you hear all these negative things. And then, if you're watching that video and you got to go good video, bad video, good video, bad video, you're probably going to err on the side of like, well, I don't want someone to come after me. I don't want any bats in my comments, so I'm going to make sure that I'm really tough on these people. And you have what you have. But I think they were way too harsh.
Hey, Tristan. Tristan, can you mute?
Bias, you talk about the
Thank you.
walking out, or like, what was it? Who was it in the Open? Who was the games athlete in the Open that had the issue with her elbow? Rebecca Fusiet.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever.
Thrusters.
It's like because she has like that issue with her elbow, and that's just like what her locked out position looks like. And so it's like, I think the same thing can go with people standing up on a box or whatever, right? And it's like, I think it is subjective to a degree.
And it's situational.
Yeah.
Because like you bring up Rebecca Fusilia, like her elbow doesn't lock out of the way. Now, could her bar be back over her head a little bit more? As a coach and somebody who watches movement, I would say yes. Yeah. I would ignore the elbow because I know that she has something going on there, but that's been communicated, that's been understood. And then my evaluation as a judge or somebody who's going to give her a no rep, it comes from a place of understanding each individual situation. Mm-hmm. The problem is CrossFit is not looking at each individual situation, nor could they, because there's so many people with the 25%. That also creates a problem. Yeah. We won't even get that inconsistency. I don't really care. That's part of the sport. There's too many people in the 25%, too many videos to watch, too many man hours. We'd never have fairness on that way. All of us as athletes and coaches just need to accept that there is unfairness in that capacity and just let it go. Like, that's it. Sorry, there's going to be people cheating. There's going to be bad videos. There's going to be good videos. There's going to be this, that, the other. But we need to just like look at the ones that we're looking at and not, oh man, I had someone else talk while I pulled this up. I had a picture of Brooke Wells's stuff because she got a penalty. And I'm not like a huge fan of Brooke Wells or anything, but this is what she was getting criticized on. And I see the no rep. Like, she's leaning forward. Her head's over, her shoulders are not in line, right? She does have bigger glutes than most people. She does have lumbar extension than most people. Someone like Katrin has a really big lumbar extension. You could argue with the CrossFit movement standard that she is not extending the hip. Her shoulders are over and not in line with her hips and knees. And I can see where she got those penalties. But when we look at that rep, it's like, whoa, come on. Like, the capacity she had, that's pretty straight up and down. Like, I'd let it slide because I want to see the sport, do these extreme scores and watch these people express capacity. And what I said in the beginning before Harley got on was like functional fitness. Get from the ground to the top of the box. That's why, like, even box jump overs, I think as long as you're not going around the box, however you get over the box, even if you use your hands, as long as you're going over the box, I'd be fine with it. because it's functional. If we all had to go dig ditches, it's like, hey, you got to go dig 10 holes. The fastest person who digs these holes wins. We're not going to grade you on how you get it done. You just need to dig a 5-foot hole. You need to do 5 of them. First person done wins. And then you're like, well, okay, but you got to hold the shovel this way, and you can only do this, and you can only use your left foot to make sure that you push down on the shovel. And then you can only throw the dirt over your right shoulder, across your body. And if you do anything than that, you didn't dig the holes right, and you're out.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like it's like. That's my best analogy.
So because we only have 2 minutes left in our 10-minute discussion,
we'll keep going. Someone else could talk. That was my 10 minutes.
I want you to talk about the judging, the professional judges, and what we were kind of talking about yesterday.
We'll talk about that after. That's good. That could be outside the rant.
Oh.
Anyone else want to rant? I'm done ranting. That was it. My analogy of digging the holes was good. It's not fair.
Am I still echoing?
Tristan, you're on mute. You gotta figure out how to get you to.
I just unmuted myself. Am I still echoing?
You can hear your beautiful voice, Tristan. Harley guy.
I honestly don't have much to say.
Yeah, I think that the rate of travel conversation in riding.
Can't hear Harley either. What's going on with you guys' headsets?
Can't hear me?
Tyler, come on mute, say something.
I agree with what you said. Can you hear that?
Oh, interesting.
I can hear you, Tyler.
Oh, we got
Better
it now.
first?
Can you hear me now?
Yep. there it is.
I couldn't hear you at all.
Yeah.
But now,
So it was your head. It was your headphone. It was your problem.
yeah, it was my problem. Sorry, guys.
There's CrossFit right there. CrossFit's over here. It's like, that's a you problem, guys. You're not standing up all the way. But we also want you to move as fast as possible within that minute. So I think that, to Todd's point, like, I want to see the capacity and the rate of travel and the scores that would come out if you weren't going to penalize these people for, like that Brooke Wells example, having not enough posterior pelvic tilt because they have lumbar extension, or, you know, their hips or butt poked out a tiny bit. When it comes back to the professional judges, which I know that you said we're going to dive into that a little more in a minute. If you're judging someone in person and you're watching, you know, the common joints used for that movement, so like step up, you're going to watch their knee and their hip, and you're set up lower than them because they're stepping up onto an elevated surface. You're probably not going to look up at their shoulders, and you're not going to look at the gross move patterns of their whole system all the time. You're probably just going to be watching those two joints, knee and hip. Are they getting close to extension? Are they moving fast? And it's like, yeah, they are. They're really close to it, to the naked eye at speed. And it's like, it's really hard to do that job perfectly in person. And if you do it well, great. Like, ideally, you hold someone to that execution, but then they get to come back at a different angle and all this stuff. Like, yes, this conversation has been sort of talked through pretty extensively about like the video review versus in person. But I think that, you know, at any in-person event, that Brooke Wells photo, if that still was truly at the top of her step up, that a lot of people would let that slide on any live in-person competition floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with Pat Bellmers. Same with
a lot of people. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we saw Kelly Stones. She put up 2 reps. I'd like for more people put up more reps to see, because obviously, like, you could pick your best reps. Not saying she did that. I'm just saying generally across the board. But, you know, it's like there are a lot of people put up their videos and they look, I mean, to me, I'm like, oh man, I could see where the no rep is, what CrossFit is saying, but I think it's too scrutinous and it's taking people out of the sport that should be in the sport, unnecessarily taking them out.
I kind of think it leads into a conversation too of what the video review process is like. I was talking with some people over the last week. I don't love the idea that they can freeze frame every rep in a video review.
Yeah, but you can't control that, you know. I agree, but like, what do you?
No, but I think
cross your fingers that they don't do it.
I think that's something that, I mean, frankly, the PFAA can have a conversation with CrossFit about, because at that point, there's no point in having a judge there in person.
Yeah.
And if you can freeze frame every rep and your entire purpose is to find a fault, you're gonna find a fault.
Right.
Right.
That's that bias.
yeah, it's just I think they should. Maybe there's certain situations where they can freeze frame, or they only get a certain number of freeze frames. If we actually understood what the video review process, how it functioned more, I completely agree with Marissa though. Like, I'm going to be annoying in this whole conversation because I think everything around this is entirely pointless until we get this stage
Right.
not on the internet.
Yeah. No, 100%.
It'll never be.
Because like I got in the comments of like one of Andrew Hiller's posts and then got really ripped.
Huge mistake.
Saw that.
Hey man.
Saw that.
No, you liked it. It's okay. Because like you know, that's the thing is like we have our voice. Everybody has a voice. Like you went on Clydesdale Media and I watched that or listened to it. It was really good. And like we can only say what we can say. And I think there needs to be enough people saying other things to keep reason. Cause I know Andrew's on like this other end and there are a lot of things I agree with him and I like, and I'm glad he's doing it. But there's other things where I'm like, dude, you can't be on both sides of the fence on this. Like you helped Will Leahy. He got penalties. You need to now say, hey, everybody that I scrutinized, I apologize. I now see how hard it is to be a judge for one of these people. I understand why you did what you did. I don't agree with you putting in your scores, watching your videos, or like Danny Spiegel putting in the wrong time. Like you can not agree with those things, but you also need to take a second and go and counteract all the shit you did over the last year to 2 years. That's like the point that I was getting at is like, you now have some responsibility, man. You came out and criticized these people heavily saying it's so easy to catch and you should read the rules and do your job and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, now it happened to you. So where do we stand? Because if it was so easy, why did Will Leahy get those penalties, you know? And then I get it.
Well, I think that, the issue is that he did say that in the Savon podcast.
Yeah, but he didn't say in his post, you know?
Well, he didn't say in his post, and I don't think he ever actually said, I'm sorry, but he did say, I'm not right in this circumstance. He said CrossFit should be praised for holding the standard, but he said the issue is that no one can do that job in person, right? He said, even though there's the certified or the professional judges going to camps, he's going to work with Bill Leahy and try to like get Bill through, unscathed, and no one's able to do that well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my other problem with that is like, cool, you said it on Sevon, but like, why don't you make a 12-minute YouTube video? Her like beating down on yourself and saying, hey, you know what? What I criticized about this happened to me. Here are the things. I criticized all of these people who are high-level athletes. I criticized, Johnson from Proven about his coaching ability. Like he's criticized other coaches and their coaching ability too, and sat back from his garage. And that's what irritated me. It's like, well, now you're in the hot seat and you can't even sit back and go, oh man, you know what? I need to have some humility. I'm sorry. I'm going to make a public sorry to all these coaches and everybody that I made money off of because his YouTube is making money to be that way. Like there's just so much at play that irritates me. And at this point now, I'm out of it. I'm not even going to get in the comments anymore. I got bats yesterday. I just cannot. I can't handle it. I don't want to get canceled by the Hiller mob. I'm just not about it.
I think it's a really good point, though. And I mean, maybe it's something Hiller can take and be introspective. It's really easy to throw peanuts and vegetables from the outside of the arena. And the coaches aren't athletes, but I can empathize with you in the sense of the responsibility that I feel when my athletes do those qualifiers. Like, I set up everything for them. They don't go through that. I tell them the relevant information they need to know, and the only thing I want them thinking about is executing. And I make sure all that other stuff is done. And yeah, it's easy for him to throw stones from the outside, but it's very clear he didn't really like it too much when he was in the hot seat. And maybe that's something he can grow from, because it is really, really uncomfortable. Last year, one of my athletes on event 1, I messed up and we didn't start in the right spot for the front squat muscle up handstand walk event. We started facing the bar. I missed it. And I was sick to my stomach all night. And thankfully they only got a 9-second penalty or something and it didn't impact anything. But if they would have gotten invalid video for that, I would have stood in traffic. You know what I mean? It's like, so I think I hope maybe he can learn from it and have a little bit more empathy for the people who are actually on the ground doing the job versus making a YouTube video.
Yeah, that's all I really wanted. And then I got batted. They're like, get out. Who's this jabron? I was like, geez, Louise. Okay. Got it. Message received.
He has minions. You gotta fucking just stay out of that.
Yeah, I was trying to do good in the world, stand up for the little guys.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not the place.
Speaking of, this is good though. So like Mercer's saying, the solution is really not possible because it would involve taking the stage in person or a registered sites, which we've talked in length of. So there's a couple things at play that I want to bring to people's attention, which is really cool. And I've already brought it to attention to some people in our gym, and hopefully you guys can bring it attention too. I do think that the Association of Fitness Judges is a good thing. I think it's really cool. I've been on their website. I have people who've looked at their education. I have some people looking into wanting to become one of those people out of our affiliate in our gym. And if those people, like, let's say they get this like certification or whatever it's going to be, then we have people on site who can judge these people, which I think is really cool. I think from this perspective, which I haven't heard anyone talk about yet, and it's not like it's super unique, crazy idea, I think it creates a better ecosystem for CrossFit, and it creates money opportunity and brings it back to the affiliates. So what you could do is, because CrossFit is an educational, that's what they're saying they are, even though they kind of are a media company. They are an educational certification and affiliate company. They could then bring in the AFJ, make that a certification through CrossFit with the AFJ, as the AFJ runs it themselves, allow CEUs for people who are level 1, level 2, level 3 to continue their education. Also, as an affiliate owner, if I have some of these people in my gym, I then could say, hey, we're an official site. We have these AFJ people. You can come here and do your quarterfinals here. Here's the cost. You could also pay those members at money to be those official judges, reimburse them for their time and energy getting these certifications and growing through. You could really professionalize a sport, and then you would need no video review, because CrossFit would put the stamp of approval on these judges, all of these people, and have it within the ecosystem that makes more money to CrossFit through this education, through the AFJ, makes money for the affiliates, and could potentially make money to those people who are the AFJ judges, as long as I, as the affiliate owner, set that up appropriately and then charge people to come to our testing facility, that you can have verified judges' scores, and then you go on to the next stage. I think that's a really easy solution. There are people who want to do these things. You can make money. I would be excited about it. I would pay members to get this certification if they're interested, help make them be a professional judge, because then our athletes from our online company, and even our athletes within our gym who qualify, will have an advantage and opportunity, because I'm doing my job as an affiliate owner and someone in charge of a training company to help build and grow these things bigger than what other people may or may not do. And that's just through my work. I don't have to do anything other than try to work hard to make this. So everyone has the same opportunity. If you're an affiliate owner, you'd have the same opportunity to do this. It makes it even across the board. What do you guys think of that?
I think it's a cool idea. I think that you'd have to have a lot of excited people behind it to take the deal and be responsible for setting up their own facilities and doing what you just explained. That is legwork on affiliate owners taking it a step further, and unless they have a relatively dense population within their own community that would be excited about doing that, or about having that opportunity to do it in their own space, I don't think a lot of people would actually get behind it, because I think that the narrative behind even just the judges course, as a low barrier to entry as it is that it's a pain in the ass and it's not worth their time, because it's just silly and it's just a formality. But again, for the facilities that do have athletes, that do have a competitive sort of mindset around their culture, they may be more inclined to be involved. But I don't know if it's widespread enough to actually gain traction across the country. And then you'd have these hubs or hotspots around the country. No, that would be good. But people would then be forced to travel.
That's all right.
And I think, but I mean, I am not afraid to travel. I like it, but I do it already. But I don't think that a lot of people would love it. You know what I mean? I think that they would be like, no, I'd rather just be able to do it in my own gym. So if they were, say there were these.
No, that's what I'm saying. You could do that, and you could still put in your video, and you still could do it. But if you go to a hub, you have the judge, and you have no video, you are already verified and stamp of approval for your score. You still have the other option.
Correct. So I was going to use that as a segue into the whole video conversation of if you didn't go to one of these facilities because they aren't that, spread far and wide yet, especially in the first few years
Oh,
until they're gaining traction. For the people who are not able to go to one of those facilities, they're still uploading a video, they're still getting video reviews, they're still doing all this stuff. It's just a less advantageous, smooth experience.
Yeah.
Right. What do you guys think about segregating the leaderboard to where, just like they do in the open, if anyone does scale, they automatically fall below anyone who does RX? Anyone who submits a video link already automatically goes above anyone who doesn't have a video. And then that takes care of the idea of those people who Paige Powers got dropped down 600 spots, but then all those 600 people ahead of her, 599 people ahead of her, didn't necessarily like even get a second look, you know, even if they
Yeah.
had a video or not. So
I think I like what you're saying. I don't know if that's necessarily fair, like to do that, but I think the logical step is to do something like Boston Marathon. You look at other communities like endurance racing, large participatory events, and you just make a pro division and people sign up for that to be in the pro division. You make an RX division or however you want. And those are different leaderboards because they have the filters. You could still do the worldwide leaderboard. You could still do the region and see where you stack against the pros, where you stack against the RX. But your actual leaderboard that's on there is not impacting the professionals for the qualification process.
yeah, what if you think about the people who are just like ego driven and sign up for the pro division and still
They're going
don't
to get
check all
stomped. They're going to get stomped.
but still don't check the boxes. But with the inclusive fitness, if we're concerned about them getting in front of Paige Powers with penalty, then they're still going to be in that conversation. So
Sure.
I think the formality of you don't have to pick your division is still open, and just having the formality of you have to come through the hoop of filming and uploading video to YouTube,
Yeah.
creating a URL link, that
Well, yeah.
automatically set you below.
Well, so that would be the other thing. Like if they separate these leaderboards and make new ones, the pro division, the standard is you either go to a testing site in our idea here with a AFJ judge, or you upload a video. If you don't have those, you get a 0, and that's like done. You know, no problems, nothing questioned. And then I think the pro, which people have been asking for, is the videos are viewable. Not to say that you can judge on them like in the past, but I think the videos should be viewable. I think anyone should be able to go, just like Rogue. If you put your video in, anyone should be able to view it. Doesn't mean that they're able to, you know, hurt you in any way, but I think it should be visible.
No whistleblowers.
Yeah, no whistleblowing. I hate whistleblowing. Makes me mad. I
I don't hate
almost whistleblowed twice this year, and I did not. I refrained. I was like, "There's no point. I don't need to do this."
I don't hate the testing site idea. I think logistically that could prove challenging for certain areas, and I think there would be a certain amount of due diligence needed to be done to make sure you were at a neutral site and had neutral judges.
Yeah, it's not a robot though. I agree with that. The hard thing is like my only stance is we're human beings. So like at the end of the day, it's whatever.
Yeah. I completely agree. If you don't submit a video, you should not be above anybody who submits a video. But I also more so believe that there should be a completely separate leaderboard for everybody who's trying to go to semifinals. And yeah, I unfortunately feel very strongly that when we start to separate, when we get to the separation stage of people going to the second highest level of competition in the sport, I personally, as a coach of high-level athletes and people who want to be good at this, am no longer interested or give a rat's ass about inclusivity.
Sure.
So,
Tristan feels strong. I feel strongly about that too.
unpopular opinion these days, but.
Well, not. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. If not everyone gets a trophy, but like, everyone gets a trophy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the hard thing. And like, sport doesn't care. The sport itself is okay. I'm gonna say this, and like anybody listen to this, the sport itself is the most inclusive. I know that there are barriers to entry because CrossFit is expensive, the equipment is expensive, but that's true for other sports like hockey and lacrosse, and even football is expensive. Like the equipment you got to buy, the leagues you got to get into, and I understand there's exclusivity there based on your economic set point. But at by and large, CrossFit is inclusive to any body that wants to partake in it, and anyone could become the fittest on earth. I know that you do need weights and everything else. I get that. So let's like just put that in a corner for a second, that you need the general equipment of a pull-up bar, barbell, rower, etc. All that matters is your score. Was your score on workout 1 210 reps or more? Was your score on workout 2 a 17-minute time or faster? Was your score on workout 3 a 10 to 9-minute time or better? Did you finish with 28 to 35 clean and jerks on workout 4? If you did, no matter what, and you got a good video, you will move on to the next stage of semifinals. That's the average of what it took. Are we in agreement of that, kind of, to a degree, of those scores? So if you could do that, you're in. Doesn't matter. You could be anywhere in the world. You know, it's hard. So like CrossFit in itself has been the most inclusive thing that I've seen in the entire world, because all that matters is, was your friend time X? You know, did you do the RX weight and was it that time? Cool. You know, so it's hard. I hate when people say it's not inclusive. I'm like, oh my God, it's scores. All that matters is your score, nothing else. And did you beat the person next to you? So like, to Tristan's point, like, it's been inclusive. It is inclusive. And even if you break up these leaderboards, it's still inclusive, because you have the opportunity to move from RX to pro. You have the opportunity to go from intermediate scale to RX, and you can keep moving up as long as your fitness improves. So it's always been inclusive. It always will be. Most sports, you can argue, are pretty inclusive. So I hate that. And I know I'm probably going to get some hate for this, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, and even from a programming standpoint, this year, regardless of leaderboard separation, whatever, the barrier to entry to do the movement were far more accessible to the masses than previous years. And that posed an issue in some of our conversations throughout the weekend. We expected, these huge bottlenecks to actually limit some of the higher level people. But at the end of the weekend, I was actually pretty satisfied with where the games athletes fell before penalties, of course. Games athletes, semifinal athletes, bubble athletes, they all were kind of where they should have been. And I was pretty happy to see that, because I was concerned for some people getting sort of dampened and pushed down the leaderboard, even though by someone who was less, well-rounded, if you will. But I think that it definitely was a harsher reality whenever you got a penalty, or if you did get caught in a medium performance or like within a bottleneck, you got punished really greatly with only 4 scores.
Yeah.
But that was just because there's 4 scores and there's not enough separation or points on the table.
And 7 years ago.
Okay.
Dude, that's like the running joke. 4 scores and 7 years ago. All right. All things considered, I know it's my thing. I've been saying it last 2 weeks. I've been saying it. Perfect world, no penalties, because Harley segued. That's good. Programming. How you guys feel? I loved it. I have nothing to say. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. I think it was great. I think it got the right people. I think it tested a lot of good things. Go for it. No words?
I liked it overall. No, I liked it overall. I thought it was interesting. So when I sat down and kind of wrote down some thoughts about the workouts, wrote them down, scribbled on a piece of paper, it almost looked to me like we did a CrossFit combine, in a sense.
Oh, okay. I like where we're going with this.
We had an interval test, power output based, lower body dominant, hinge dominant, right knee or hip flexion to extension. We had aerobic, high volume leg redundancy, longer. We had
aerobic fatigue,
gymnastics, upper body fatigue, endurance, capacity, whatever you want to call it, right? All gymnastics in that workout. And we had a single modality barbell test under fatigue that required both fitness but absolutely required strength. You could not do well on that test if you were not strong.
Oh yeah.
So they were a little more, I want to say, segmented than quarterfinals tests in the past, which was different to me. There was like the skills weren't evenly mixed throughout the test or the loading, etc. And my head arrived at kind of seemed like we did a CrossFit combine, so to speak, which I don't hate. It's just a deviation from what I have come to expect in the past years with the workouts. But the workouts themselves, I didn't really have a problem with, other than 150 burpee box jump overs sucked.
Well, unless you're
But
me, you only
I
did
think they were fine tests.
unless you're me. I did 100
Yeah,
plus.
I only did 124 too. So.
Yeah, see, there you go. I was like going way slow. They all watched me. Everyone watched me on site. I was like, did 10, walked around the box, marked on my little tally, did 10. My video is great to watch. Wall balls were easy though.
Yeah. My favorite about that test was everyone's like, oh man, these 150 burpees are going to suck. I'm like, good luck. Like, most of you guys aren't even going to do that many.
Yeah.
The 100 you're gonna do, right?
Yeah, the 100. Yeah, I appreciated the tests from the, I've said this before. This is like a methodology in a sport of tradition, right? So we love our benchmarks, we love our named workouts, etc. I think that it was a good homage to Grace with the ascending ladder and that clean and jerk test. It was a good homage to Fight Gone Bad and the ghost workout from back in the day that were both 1 minute.
That ghost workout is nasty.
That guy. So
I'm gonna
I was
program
listening
that
to-
2 weeks late from now, dude. I'm so glad you said that workout. I'm like,
That is
I,
a great
I'm
workout.
smiling so hard right now because of that workout.
So I was listening to J.R. Howell and Taylor Self analyze sort of the tests, and someone in the chat said something about, oh, did you hear the rumor that one of the stations was supposed to be a jump rope movement and not step ups or whatever the other movement was? And I was like, oh, well, that was actually a homage to the ghosts then and not Fight Gone Bad. So I went and re-looked up that workout because it just rung a bell in my head. And that was 3 minutes on, 1 minute off. Fight Gone Bad is 4 minutes on, 1 minute off. And so I was like, oh, it's more like the ghost in time domain and nature of interval duration than Fight Gone Bad. I was like, maybe it was supposed to be more like that.
Didn't Dave create that because the guy trained at?
Yeah, the ghost was a boxer who trained at the ranch,
Yeah.
and he trained under the methodology. He was actually coached by Greg Amundsen
Okay.
around the time that I was going to school out there in Monterey and Salinas. And so I actually went to the ranch quite a few times. Got befriended Dave's brother Kenny, and I would train at the ranch on a weekly basis because it was just, why not?
Close.
If I had the access to it, it was cool, right? And he, in his preparation for one of his fights, was coming through each week, and we would cross paths a lot. The ghost, the actual fighter, was one of the nicest, down to earth guys I've ever interacted with. Super cool. But the other guy who was coaching him, Greg, was a little bit more egotistical and arrogant. But that's okay.
He's OG, dog. Don't hate on
He's,
Greg
he's,
Amundsen like that.
he's OG. He is OG.
He's the lowest of OGs.
Doesn't mean he can't be a nice guy.
He doesn't even have a rig in his gym.
I know it. Dude, he was the first person I've ever seen do supinated kicking pull-ups in every workout.
He's OG.
Not even kidding.
Yeah.
Wild.
I mean, I like him, but difference of
He's
opinion.
a fire breather, dude.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing. He
He's
was
always
the
been
one who
nice to me.
coined the term.
Sorry, he was mean to you, Harley.
He wasn't mean. It was when we were in one-on-one settings, he was very much so like, this is my way and my place, and you're not like,
Oh, like every CrossFit level 1 trainer
yeah, kind
on
of.
the red shirt, every red shirt. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
Extend your hips more.
And
You're
then
not
but with
extending your hips.
if anyone else was there, he was like the most like, oh, hey buddy, like what's up? And so it was like very like two personalities, like
Yeah.
Two-Face, if you want to go that far. But so that was, anyways, digression. That test is really cool because I appreciated it. Was actually a homage kind of more so to that other workout, and they're very similar in formats. And so the game of tradition, right? And that's sort of what I was sort of trying to lean on. 150 wall balls, everyone's like, oh, care. But, like they're notable workouts and common movements, common volumes, common formats that we all have seen before time and time again over the years. So I appreciated that from a programming standpoint. Along with the sort of combine, you get the touch point on all these different, common.
That's interesting. I didn't think of like the combine analogy, but I did notice that they were like segmented like that, which I did like because I do like Harley saying, we're looking at broad times and mole domains. That's kind of the only way to test fitness in CrossFit. If you're looking for not necessarily the games, but if you're trying to look and separate people with a scoring parameters, you need to test the 10 general physical skills in a certain way and GMW in a certain way that doesn't allow, because of the scoring system, the way the points are, is these huge deviations, because the best are going to be the best. And we talk about this all the time, but it's more of the bubble people, the people trying to get in the sport, or the people trying to level up. Like, the scoring system hurts those people. And if you don't test it in a certain way, it's going to continue to hurt those people. And, yeah, okay, someone will fill their spot and the next person will come up. But wouldn't you rather have people the same way they do with other sports, like a feeder system of people who are ready to take on the mantle? Because and people, yeah, but this person came up, that person came up. Yeah, but I would argue there are more people who are not coming through with the right skill set and not being able to perform at the games or perform at semifinals the way they should, because there is no path or track. It's like the Navy SEAL, which, historically homage to CrossFit. It's more of like, oh, we're going to find the Navy SEALs. We're not going to create the Navy SEALs, which I rather CrossFit go back and go, we're going to create the Navy SEALs. We're also going to find them, you know, and like, if you know anything about the SEALs, that's what they say. And that's what they do. They just find the best people and they scrub out the rest. And I think until Dave and some of those people get out of or change their mindset, and understand, like, other sports work really well when you build these stories and build people up. I mean, you look at women's basketball, how popular is that now with Caitlin Clark? Like, the WNBA, they took all those players and like, I look on my Instagram, followed one account, and like, it's now feeding me all this stuff, but they got media now. They're showing all kinds of stuff. It's crazy because of what she did in the sport. And now they're parlaying that into the WNBA, which is awesome for their sport. And they've done a good job of that. And like, CrossFit needs something like that. And it's, that same conversation, like, we need the road to the games, we need the media, we need this, we need that. But it is how it works and how it gets better. But like, to Tristan's point, if they keep these combine ideas, we can prep people better to do better. And we know the characteristics, and the characteristics, like Harley's saying, are homage to classic CrossFit, the way they tell us to program design. And you just build these people up to do these things, and then you test them, let it rip, and see who's got it. And I think that's a better system. So in general, I think the testing was a much better system, aside from the penalties.
Yeah, I think it made it easy to have some conversations with athletes afterwards about what we really need to dedicate our focus on, for the next 365 days. Like, I have one athlete that I coach, really 2.5 of the tests passed with flying colors, or was good enough. But got a little bit of that silver bullet with that wall ball burpee box jump over, right? And it's like, hey, this isn't anything we really didn't know, but now we also have other data points that you are actually competitive at a high level on 2 basically of these 4, kind of on the first one. We just need to clean that up a little bit. But if we spend the next 6 months destroying this weakness, things look pretty good. So it's easier to have those conversations when you have these kind of tests like this, versus when it's all so mixed and muddled together. You're trying to tease out, like, did this blow up that? Like, what went first? Was it your lungs? Was it your heart? What did you feel? It makes it a much more complicated conversation, which is important and will no doubt still be part of what coaching is. But it was nice. And I think it made it a lot easier for the athletes to understand.
But
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that with like the combine and the feeder systems, all like, they already know what they're being tested on too, right? Like, they come into it, they train all year long, knowing that they got to do a vertical jump, knowing that they got to do whatever they have to do to get there. And so with CrossFit, it was really hard about, it's like if they gave us the open test a year in advance, right? Like, that's what it would look like. And then people train all year long, but then you lose the variety or the unknown and unknowable of CrossFit, right? And so it's like, I know we're training energy systems, I know we're training aerobic and gymnastics and strength and all these things, but I think that's also a factor because we're training so many things. And so then it's like, how do we, and then our tests are different every year. And so it's like, yeah.
Yeah, well, it gives you an opportunity to look at like Tristan's saying, like the aerobic, that test could have been rowing and double unders, or rowing and shuttle runs, and not wall
Yeah,
balls and birdie
sure.
box jump overs. It could have been burpees to a touch and shuttle runs, which we've already done. Like, but that one wasn't so long. And I think a lot of people are sandbagging because the thruster and like the complexity, you start adding in variables, it makes it hard, like Tristan's saying, to sit back and go, okay,
Mhm.
your monostructural needs to get better. Like if we're just going to look at it through the lens of CrossFit and not like our higher educated lens, and we just go with GMW, it's like, if you didn't do very well on the weightlifting portion, that workout could have been thrusters, it could have been snatches, it
Yeah.
could have been just cleans, it could be deadlifts, it could have been whatever. Your W is not great, right? Your gymnastics, because that was a full gymnastics test, not great. Your monostructural was not great. Your mixed modal, or I would also say your high contraction, low load, muscular endurance on the first test is not great, because those workouts could have been power cleans, could have been thrusters, could have been deadlifts, rowing, box jump overs, box step ups, double unders, like Harley's saying, could have been any of those combinations in that style of the interval. And you're just looking at those things and going, okay, this is what we need to work on. And if CrossFit is doing this intentionally, hopefully we just crack the code on what they're doing intentionally and can train our athletes. If nothing else, like Tristan's saying, it gave us an opportunity, because I've had debriefs with athletes and it's like, this is where you suck. And this is very easy to see now. And I've been telling you for a while, and now you can see it. Cause like Tristan alluded to, athletes will fight you on stuff. It's like, no, it's your aerobic endurance. And they're like, it's not. I need this. I need to be able to do this under fatigue. And like, I need to, do muscle ups, and I got to like really hammer myself and do muscle ups. It's like, no, you might actually need to go run a 5K in 18 minutes, and you'll actually be better at those ring muscle ups when you're breathing heavy. But you don't see that because you're seeing the ring muscle ups be dampened while you're trying to do other stuff. And like, it's made it much easier to have these conversations, which is great. And I think, again, back to the point of what Heather's saying and the evaluations, and you don't need to know the tests every year to train. But if this is the vein that we're going through and how they're going to work it, it allows us to actually say, hey, we are training for a known but unknowable combination, like known incapacities, and like the combination of the only variation that we're going to get.
Right.
You brought up a really good point with the differences of the movements, and something I tell our other coaches and even some of the more cerebral athletes that I coach is, okay, it was clean and jerks. If that was snatches, the leaderboard is the same within one standard deviation.
Right.
So same thing with if it was burpees and wall balls and it was rowing and burpees or rowing and wall balls or whatever, it's okay. Like, yes, you're going to have a certain amount of people who can thrive with a movement ability where they can make up some money, but it's at most one standard deviation.
Right.
And I think if people can understand that, that will give them a little bit more confidence to not think so movement specific.
Right.
Yeah. Like Marissa's saying, if you train the energy systems and skills, then it doesn't matter. The test is the question mark. It's like, yeah, that's what Tristan's answering. It's like, if you look at the things the way we're looking at it and taking the GMW, taking the history of CrossFit. And I think like that's what makes us so valuable as coaches right now, is that we know these things, we're talking about these things, and we're building our knowledge base based on them. Because even, I don't know if, our coaching staff's been talking about, because we use CoachRx, they're coming out with AI. AI is going to be able to write the progression for the athletes and the program based on the OPEX knowledge base. So like writing program in the next 5-10 years is going to be a thing of the past because of AI. But what you need is this. You need people like this, understanding, like Harley bringing up the ghost workout, understanding the history, understanding the sport. We actually get to coach more than write program. Because I think right now a lot of us are program designers who are really trying to coach, and we're struggling to make both happen as best as we can. And once the program gets written, to Marissa's point, if the program's training energy systems or GMW and the skills, then we get to help you understand and like make you so test resilient that it doesn't matter what the combinations are, because we know all the history. We're throwing you the right things. We're pulling things out, building these things this way, and really building a sound, robust coaching system that allows you to go, I don't really care what comes out. I'm good at CrossFit. And I know that if it is like Tristan's saying, a snatch or a clean and jerk or a thruster, I'm good to go because my coach has got my back and we're doing the right things. So it's really interesting. I think they set us up for success as coaches if they continue this pattern the way they did. They probably won't though, and then we're all fucked.
It's definitely going to change, but it does also make it really, it gives us more bandwidth to dive into the nuts and bolts of actually coaching. Like, you need to be done with this at this time or this at that time. Like, something my fiance brought up, all the athletes I had redo workouts, I sat down and I did the math and I did the splits and I watched the video and da 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 da, and everybody got better.
Yeah.
She was like, "Wow, you're really good at doing that." I was like, "Well, that's coaching. Being able to sit down and see what happened, watch the athlete, know the athlete, write down these times, come up with a sensible plan to execute again and do differently. Like, that's a lot more of what I think coaching the sport, like you said, can be in the next, couple years."
So, circling back to the idea of energy systems and movement selection, don't you love that the aerobic test this year was actually in the scope of CrossFit AG and AW? That was like monostructural.
Yeah.
Love that. So it's more about the time domain and contraction force, like the rate of force production per movement and the cycle rate that makes
Hey
something
man,
more or
there
less
might be some
aerobic.
dumb people watching this. You better be careful with that. I'm just kidding. It was a joke. That was really smart.
Dude, you're gonna get bats.
I'm gonna get bats right now.
Dude,
I was kidding.
Dude. Hey, I voted that our team shirt at semis just said absolute trash on it, but
Absolute
Paige wasn't down.
trash. I like it.
Absolute trash. Fuck yeah.
No, to give you credit, that was amazing, Harley. If you guys all listen to that, repeat it again because that was like mic drop worthy.
So, and I kind of stole this from the analysis of like Taylor and JR, but it's so Adrian Bosman to be like, hey, we are going to just change one factor about the burpee and make it more challenging. And we're actually not going to do an aerobic machine, but we're just going to do a lot of this thing and it's going to become aerobic in nature.
Yeah.
So essentially the 20-minute long test, workout 2, wall balls and burpee box rovers, is in the scope of CrossFit is weightlifting for wall balls and gymnastics for the burpees and the box jumps. That said, in combination, with the force production, turnover, cycle rate, etc., gives an aerobic experience. So CrossFit maybe would call that a monostructural test because they're using the aerobic system. Well, it's not monostructural because it's not a single modality, but you get my point. You're utilizing the aerobic system because it's a longer time domain, lighter force production, but in their context of programming, it is weightlifting and gymnastics.
True. But it's cyclical. And everybody who is OPT or OPEX or training think tank is just on that map 9 hype now, probably.
So what I love is
if you know map 9, you know what I'm talking about.
So what I love is back to the burpees, CrossFit would call it gymnastics. I may have gotten this from TTT back in the day when I was coached by them, but I've been telling athletes for a long time. I remember having this conversation in 2019, saying that a burpee is essentially just moving your body through space and time, right? Resisting gravity. What is running? It is horizontal displacement, resisting gravity, moving through space and time. It can be a burpee if done efficiently and consistently is a cyclical repeatable movement and should be an aerobic movement. It's aerobic in nature. And the fact that this test came out and it was burpee box and rovers for an absurd amount of volume, I agree. It's like, well, that
it was chill. It was. I like it. I actually to be real though. I want to do the volume for myself, like more to build resilience to it, like you're saying. So I don't think it was, honestly.
So I have a question about your guys' perspective because I had this conversation with a couple athletes. I perceive like a burpee box jump over threshold, sort of like top end that I write in people's designs, somewhere around 120. Like it's like the top end, like, and that's like a very highly trained person. And then to see this come out and it's like 150, that has now changed my perspective. And I was forming this 100-ish plus or minus reps around 17.1, what was that, 21.2, that retest, dumbbell and burpees. They were doing 75. So I'm like, all right, like our top end needs to be a little bit more than that just so we're resilient to the 75. Now it's like 150. So it's like, well, the bar has not been raised. Like I was unprepared for this from my perspective and my past preconceived, ideas.
No, agreed. I think I've looked at a lot of like the hero wads recently and then just .com, like, I follow .com pretty religiously. And like, there are some workouts that are like really voluminous, as Harley corrected me. And yeah, I think looking at that stuff or some of the older workouts might be helpful for all of us. And even athletes, like if you're listening, it's like, look at some of the .com workouts and some of these ones where you go, holy fuck. Like the Hero Wad Mana that we just did on Saturday. It's what, 210? How many squats was that?
203.
203 squats, back squats of 135, 95 pounds. And then they do the 400-meter run. Like, you know, the run is whatever. And like most of our members, we put a 45-minute cap on it. You know, not everybody got through it, but still 203 at 135, 95. We did make everyone go from the floor, not from a rack. So that does change things. But, you know, who's got 20 racks in their gym?
90% plus finish, though. A lot of them did finish.
Yeah, but it's still 203.
Yeah.
And everyone came in on Monday yesterday and they're like, oh, I'm so wrecked. I was like, well, you could thank BJ. Shout out BJ, who requested the workout, and I programmed it into the program. But like that, you know, you look at stuff like that, Harley, like it's like, okay, we don't want to train like that all the time, but we do have to keep it in mind. And I wasn't necessarily surprised. It didn't really jump out at me as like, oh, 150. I kind of was like, oh shit, okay. Because we did the 10-minute AMRAP that was from .com.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. I think that to Harley's point, we just had our pack athletes test that in February, and it was a 10-minute
Whenever
AMRAP,
it came out on
10-minute AMRAP of burpee box jumps, and I think our high end people got 120 to 130. So they weren't even hitting that 150 time domain. It would have been interesting if .com would have made it a 15-minute AMRAP to force people to do closer to that 150 volume, which then they were going to be asking of people in quarters. And so I think I kind of agree with Harley. I think 150 was a lot more than I thought most athletes were probably training for.
Yeah, I definitely did not program 150 burpee box jump overs multiple times for most of my athletes, but I think my thought process on that test as of now kind of goes back to the previous conversation and a little bit what Harley brought up. I think two things that people can take away from that test. One, don't get wrapped around 150 burpee box jump overs that you need to be hitting that in like weekly volume or session volume once a week, especially if your season just ended. I think it's something you can
2-3 months, bro. Like, don't even like you could play for skill. Like I think
it's something you can build up into. And I mean, I definitely made a mental note. I don't mind admitting this. Like from a programming perspective and a coaching perspective, all of my athletes relative to their competitive peers, that was their worst test. So it's like, cool, check Roger. Like I can take that on the chin and move on. So that's something I'll keep in mind. But I think what I was thinking about as I evaluated that is, one, it's not so much the movement, it's the modality. It's the energy system, like we said. Like if you get your 5K better, you will do better on that test. And then to what Harley said about cyclical movement across, you know, against gravity through time, all of what we talk about is super cool and awesome, and we're super nerdy and we love it. But at the end of the day, velocity is king with CrossFit.
That's true.
If you can keep moving
velocity,
right? So if you can improve your ability to breathe and then improve your ability to move at a quicker velocity while keeping that relative amount of breathing or capacity, you will destroy that test when your coach retests it for you next year. And you won't have to do 150 burpees.
That leads into like what you're saying about that. Is like you don't have to do that volume, but you do have to do volume. You know, assuming you're strong enough, and like let's say that was your worst test. Okay, cool. You're gonna do training programs 1 to 2 times a week for sure that are long. You know, and it's 45 minutes of work to 90 minutes of work where you're just continually doing work at low contractions to get yourself more cyclical, like Harley's saying, and that's your training day. You know, and that's something I think I'm going to have a conversation with a lot of athletes who didn't do very well in that one. Of like, look, you're going to get 1 day a week where it's 45 to 90 minutes. Like this is the training. And they're going to go, well, it's one piece and I'm just moving the whole time. It's like, yeah, and this is the most valuable thing you could be doing. And you're going to be doing that 2 to 3 times a week. And you're going to feel like, well, what about all this other training volume I did? It's like, the goal is to accumulate volume in that time window, like Harley's saying, and become more cyclical. And over time, let's say in 45 minutes, you did 500 reps. Well, in 3 months, that needs to be 1,000 reps. That's a big jump. People probably won't do that, but you're trying to get better at sustaining, like Tristan's saying, the force and velocity cyclically over the time. And then as you get better, you can shorten up that time or you can get tested in different times. but to Harley's point, like the time shouldn't matter at that point because you can move at the rate of travel because you've built up that resilience to it and you've done the volume, and the movements don't matter. It's your body through space. And that was a good point with the gymnastics and weightlifting, breakdown from Harley of like, it is a gymnastics and weightlifting movement, but it's still, I mean, two strong people, I would argue a wall ball is a body weight movement. Same thing with like a light kettlebell swing or a light dumbbell snatch. Like if I asked you, well, good example, kettlebell people, their event, how long their event is, right? 10 minutes of continual swings, and they can't put the kettlebell down. They have to switch hands. So when they're tired of doing it on one hand, they go to the other hand and they try to get as many reps as they can. So like that contraction is really easy for them. It's very cyclical, and they've built out that muscle endurance and using the aerobic system to support that repetition count. Like that's ultimately what you're trying to do in that singular specific test. If you're trying to improve it, like that's where your mindset should be all the time, is continual, cyclical, low contraction, keep moving, continual, cyclical, low contraction, keep moving as an athlete, and listen to the coach and not worry so much about all your training pieces and everything you got to do. Like if you have an A and you know that you're doing this, and this is now just for me, for my own benefit. If you're watching this and you're my athlete and I give you an A and that's all you get, I don't want to get a text message that says, I need more training volume, coach. It's like, do better on that training volume and let's see how you do. Because most of those people have already proven that they're good athletes. So do the stuff that we need so you can be great at what you choose to do.
Yeah, I have two thoughts. One about Tristan's choice of word for velocity. I think that, that is a higher brow word if you understand where it applies to the space and sport. I would say for the athletes out there, it would go with the word that Todd used, which is rate of travel, and another common one is like cycle rate. So if you're constantly moving at 5 seconds of burpee box jump over, we need you at 4. We need you at 3. We need to like somehow tick
Holy
that
shit.
down.
That's so fast.
Whoa.
Well, it depends on the time domain, right?
That's true. But still.
Okay.
Whoa.
Okay, but like
I
you
thought it
think
was
about
gonna be
that.
like 4.8. Let's get you down to 4.8.
Chill.
Damn.
You get,
I don't
whatever.
want to
It
be
was an
an athlete.
example. It was an example. It's chopping time down.
I
Okay.
know.
And in my defense, in that 30 cal row, 20 burpee October, 10 power snatch test 2 years ago, 3 seconds of burpee was definitely, the world class pace because people were just sprinting. But regardless, so my point is cycle rate. Think about the velocity relative to the time domain, and we need to build out a faster rate than you currently have. So it doesn't matter what that movement is. It needs to be relative to the time domain, and we need to move more quickly in some way, shape, or form. And it doesn't need to be going from 5 to 3, but it should be going from like 5 to Todd's point, 4.8 or 4.5.
No, you should go 5 to 3. That was good. You're gonna make hella fit athletes. I love it. Go from 5 to 3. You can. It's possible. It's just wild.
Okay. All right. God damn it. Now I lost my train of thought. Todd just like ruined it.
That was good.
All right. Well, I had another thought and I totally lost it. So if it comes back, I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, that was a really good point on the just move it, like knowing your metrics. These tests could help you evaluate the metrics. We already went over that. Like Harley's saying is like, dial those metrics in. If you want to play in the sport, you really got to keep real good data about yourself. Like we do as coaches, and we try to remember everybody's stuff and like just from memory and in the Coach RX, but also like you have to be a master of your own metrics. Like Harley's saying 5 seconds of burpee box jump over, you need to know that that's your rate of travel, or you need to know it's 4.8, or you need to know, and then start building that slowly over time and communicating like, hey, today I did this fast. And then next week, I did this fast, or I was slow again. And just watching the trends of that singular movement increase. And same thing with the rowing and everything else that you're going to do. And just be a master of yourself and those metrics too. Now that you have some data and some baseline stuff.
Right. And it's a game of averages. So you don't need to like have a stopwatch and be like, all right, there's one burpee, like just watch your video back one day, like film a whole session and like be like, oh, on average across the session, like each round had 15 burpees in it. It took me X amount of time for round 1, X amount of time for round 2, X amount of time for round 3. And then it's like, you can sort of calculate the average across the session of like, well, if I did, 45 burpees across session, it took me this amount of time, do an average, and then try to improve the average. So the other point that I thought of, or I just remembered, was that where I fell short, and Tristan said that his athletes fell short in that test. I wouldn't say that all of my athletes fell short, but definitely some of them did. and we'll learn from that. But what I think I did from a programming standpoint that I can improve upon is I did a lot of CrossFit intervals, working rate of travel, that concept we just talked about, and I did a lot of long, and I mean like really long, but with the instruction that make this easy. I think where I can improve is that MAP 9 conversation that Todd sort of leaned back on, which is make it sustainable, but sustainable does not mean easy, right? So 30 minutes, 40-minute long pieces where you are just moving at your rate of travel, whatever that is for that time domain, and live at that threshold. So it's more about like staying at your highest sustainable rate rather than trying to be zone 2 to 3 and stay aerobic, right? Like that's not even the point of the sport. It is the purpose in training for adaptation to have a base to stand on, but it's not necessarily going to transfer to that 18, 20-minute time domain, 5K sort of comparison that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
I got to bounce, guys. Thank you for having me on. Oh,
Balloons.
I leave with balloons. I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
All right. If you got any time, we can spend 10 minutes. We were going to talk about specialty classes inside of affiliate, or we could just save that for next week and I could change the title.
Change the title. I have a lot of training to do.
Yeah. Good luck, you semifinal athlete. You.
It's good. Roast more intervals.
Yeah. Paige hit a split jerk PR.
That's good.
Getting strong, dude. She's not going to let you down.
That's good.
She's trying to get on your level.
I am.
She went from a little lunchbox to a mini fridge, you know.
I hadn't squatted from a rack like for strength since the day before quarterfinals, so it's been like a month. And last week I hit a 5 rep max back squat PR, so that's cool.
Dang, bro, you're aerobic adapter.
Yeah, it's going good. It's all those banded squats. The adaptation finally set in.
Yeah, or you just couldn't recover enough.
Yeah, probably. It was basically like a deload.
Well, I'll change the title. We didn't get to specialty classes. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. Thanks for coming on. If you guys haven't already, like and subscribe. Make sure you comment. If you don't watch the show live, you add comments later on. It's totally fine. We'll take a look at them. I get notifications and I check them out. And we'll try to answer questions. If you guys have questions, you could comment on this video and we can answer it in the next live. That would be fun too. See you later.
Bye.